Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you've joined us this morning because we have a lot to cover. First, we're going to start with some viewer comments. We also have quite a few things here about the Harris campaign, the Trump campaign, some New York State issues as well. First off, comments after yesterday's program and early this morning, starting first with this. Sergeant Dave. Well, good morning, Sergeant Dave. Frank, your show is great. Well, hey, thank you. That's very nice of you. Isn't it funny the same people who said Biden was sharp as attack say Trump is slipping? Yes, and they're now calling for cognitive tests, which actually, I think I printed that out. The president, former president, releasing his health records as the media continued to kind of harp on that. At a time for 3 years, you cannot question Joe Biden's health. They're so predictable. And it's such an important point to make. It's why the media is struggling because of the bias. But this is what the Trump campaign release saying President Trump has voluntarily released updates from his personal physician as well as detailed reports from Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who treated him after the first assassination attempt. All have concluded he is in perfect and excellent health to be commander-in-chief. He has maintained an extremely busy and active campaign schedule unlike any other in political history, whereas Kamala Harris has been unable to keep up with the demands of campaigning and reveals on a daily basis she is wholly unqualified to be president of the United States. Her schedule is much lighter because it is said she does not have the stamina, of President Trump. Polls are reflective of this. So to your point, yes, the same people who said Biden was sharp as attack are now saying Trump is slipping. Another comment from a different viewer. Really enjoy your program. Well, thank you. Thank you for watching. It's a breath of fresh air among the stench of the current mainstream media bias. Well, thank you. And we're going to get to some of that bias a little bit later on, but I appreciate the very kind words. Also, early this morning, did you see that Bill Clinton criticized the Biden administration? Maybe that's why he's been kept out of the spotlight, i.e., as opposed to Hillary. It is interesting what he said about Laken Riley. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on as well, but I did see that. Also, the Democrats must be getting desperate because Harris is now running a campaign ad that suggests that President Trump is mentally unfit to run the country. Yes, she's been saying that as well in her stump speeches, and also now because recent polling did not look favorable to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, so now you're seeing a mad dash to do more interviews. If you haven't heard, she has agreed to do an interview with Fox News. Also in talks, and we'll talk about this more in depth later on, but also in talks with Joe Rogan to be on Joe Rogan's program. So I guess realizing that the basement campaign worked fine during COVID for Joe Biden, not so much for someone that was essentially untested when it came to politics. Yes, she ran in 2019 and lost before entering 2020, before Iowa, and then obviously not running this go-around, but being given the opportunity by the Democrat elites to run for president as the Democratic nominee. So there should be more questions, more scrutiny. And I think now realizing that not giving answers, not giving policy is starting to really hurt her in the polls. So now she's making a mad dash with, well, less than a month, 3 weeks away until Election Day. Another update from yesterday's program. A retired senior Pentagon official has confirmed that UFO motherships were spotted releasing swarms of smaller crafts, adding further mystery to the still unexplained intrusion over multiple U.S. military bases. His statement comes amid the release of 50 pages of Air Force records related to proactive drone incursions that one general calls close encounters at Langley. For at least 17 nights last December, swarms of noisy, small UFOs were seen at dusk, moving at rapid speeds and displaying flashing red, green, and white lights penetrating the highly restricted airspace, saying there wasn't much that could be done, almost just watching it every night as a show, in a way. Senior ex-Pentagon security official Chris Mellon told DailyMail.com that the episode was part of a much larger pattern affecting numerous national security installations. Two of the notable aspects, he said, are the fact our drone signal jamming devices have proven ineffective, and these crafts are making no effort to remain concealed. In fact, in some instances, it is clear they want to be seen as though taunting us. So that is an update from yesterday. Okay. Here we go. This is just a public service that we're going to do here on Frankly Speaking for you, the viewer, the informed viewer who, as we near Election Day, of course, there's some stress factors there, whether at the local level, you're concerned about a candidate, at the national level. Well, coming from Fox News, emotional eating can be a byproduct of stressful periods, including political events, sports games, and other happenings. Recent research published in the journal Nutrients stated that emotional eating is considered a, quote, critical risk factor for recurrent weight gain. So keep this in mind. The findings suggest a link between emotional eating and health factors like obesity, depression, anxiety, and stress. Identifying healthier coping mechanisms for negative emotions can help prevent dangerous outcomes. Studies suggest that emotional eating is more prevalent in women, an expert told Fox News Digital. People are watching the debates and watching the commentary on the couch, quickly eating their bag of chips or cookies, and it's really destructive behavior, said one expert, a nutritionist, Ilana Molstein. Even during nail-biting sports games, people can feel inclined to mindlessly snack to feel in control of the situation. When we have these periods of unrest where it's a situation of not knowing, that sense of limbo that can feel uneasy, people tend to confuse it with hunger. Until we get a hold of the emotional eating, it's really hard to lose the weight and even harder to keep it off. Food companies pushing unhealthy eating is doing us a massive disservice, the registered dietitian noted. Indulging in not so healthy treats and sweets during happy occasions like birthdays and other celebrations doesn't have the same negative long-term impact as eating to get through a negative situation. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? We want to have treats like cake or cookies to elevate a positive experience. If you have a slice of cake along with an overall healthy meal, you can still lose weight that week. You can still feel good in your body. If you get laid off or get divorced or are fighting with a best friend or are watching the news and feeling really stressed out, and you're sitting there eating cake in a very rushed, unhappy way, in order to give you this short-term emotional relief and a hit of dopamine, I find that it is what triggers a long-term unhealthy relationship with food. And that's why, folks, if you don't want to do this stress eating, watch Frankly Speaking in the morning. Nothing stressful here. We keep things light, and we present the news as it should be presented. So keep this in mind as we near November. Stay away from the stress eating. It's a destructive behavior, according to Fox News, as we near just 3 weeks to the presidential election. Did you see, by the way, I'm not sure if anyone will be attending, but I see that J.D. Vance is going to be in Williamsport tomorrow. If you had not seen, I don't think it's too late to get tickets on Trump's website if that's something that interests you. J.D. Vance will be in Williamsport tomorrow. I believe he starts speaking at 3, doors open at noon. But yes, so anyway, back to that. No stress eating, folks. No stress eating, at least not when you watch this program. If you want to, during the upcoming interviews and some of those ads that people have referenced so often on this program, I can understand it, but it's not healthy. It's a destructive behavior. So there, we lectured you at the start of this Tuesday at 6:09. Speaking to some of the comments that viewers made this morning about the media, The Atlantic, you know The Atlantic. Well, the editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, warns that the newsrooms are in decay, and that is how democracy decomposes. Quote, we're sleepwalking into an absolute disaster. You know, it's hard to be lectured by the media when they had, because this isn't new, this Atlantic editor-in-chief. This comes out not from him, but just in general from some newsroom, some news organization, probably once a quarter. It's a threat to democracy. Democracy decomposes because the newsrooms are falling apart. But there's no one to blame, of course, but the media themselves. To the viewer's point about the bias, you know, you go to these outlets and it is so extremely biased that people tune out. Then, of course, revenue suffers. and newsrooms get smaller and smaller. And some of that decision is completely financial, not because of any other reason, but to streamline costs. So really, the media has been their own worst enemy in all of this. I'm not going to get into exactly what he had to say. That was probably enough. That democracy decomposes with the newsroom decay, and that we're sleepwalking into an absolute disaster. Again, no one to blame but themselves. I would just recommend, and we're going to talk about it when we come back from break, but look at Martha Raddatz over the weekend and her attacks on J.D. Vance. Look at these various quote-unquote newsrooms, and Time Magazine, for instance. Look at that glowing piece ad on Kamala Harris, and now they're complaining Kamala Harris won't return their calls and do an interview. They have put bias over profit and actual news for quite some time now, that they think that no matter what, you're going to have to go to them. So they can push their bias, they can push their political agenda, and you're going to have to listen. Well, what they are now somewhat realizing is that that's not the case, that you have numerous resources, numerous outlets that you can go to find out the truth and not have it tinted with this extreme bias coming from the left. And all I would do is, if you don't accept my premise, I would say watch the Sunday shows and see the anger on their face and in their line of questioning when they're questioning having the opportunity to interview the vice presidential candidate from the Republican Party, J.D. Vance. Look at how they treat him. Look at how they treat Speaker Johnson, like on Sunday, or Tom Cotton. It is hostile and an angry environment, and that is all the mainstream media. You know, they're making a big deal about Kamala Harris going on Fox and saying, well, that's not a friendly outlet. Well, I think Fox sometimes overcompensates on things like that, so I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be fair questions. I don't think it's going to be aggressive in any way or angry like the Sunday shows are towards Vance or towards Cotton or whoever. I don't think it'll be like that at all. But it is an outlet that maybe she wouldn't typically go on, and that speaks probably volumes to her polling, and especially internal polling. But also, is that supposed to be some big awarded decision? When Vance has been, and Trump obviously, have been going to nothing but unfriendly territory. Yes, they do go to Fox occasionally, but other than that, they go to completely hostile and unfriendly environments on a regular basis. That is one way you could show that you are ready for the leadership position, the leadership role, right? Especially going back to what I had mentioned with Harris, having more questions surrounding her candidacy, just because, of course, there wasn't the primary process and there was no vote for her. So obviously more questions had to be asked. And it was pretty sad that at Univision, it took an audience member to ask her about the fact that she was never received a vote and that they outed Biden. It wasn't a reporter. It was a member of the audience. So there are some tough questions that she could be asked and have yet, at least real reporters, I guess, have yet to have the opportunity to ask some of them. We'll see how the Fox News interview goes. But when we come back, I'll tell you what Meghan McCain, of all people, had to say about J.D. Vance's interview with Martha Raddatz. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Just getting started here on Frankly Speaking.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Isn't this important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Want to know why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning, New York is a local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years' experience. From service and repair to new installations, trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Whether because of discomfort, lack of mobility, your lifestyle, or occupation, you sit inactively way too many hours a day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation without physical strain or impact.
It is so quiet that none of my coworkers even know I'm using it.
Strengthen and tone your legs, increase your mobility, flexibility, and balance. Plus, stimulate healthy circulation.
My joints feel better, my knees feel better, my back feels better. It makes me feel stronger too.
Perfect for home therapy. Whisper quiet to use while you work.
My circulation is moving, I'm burning calories, and it makes me feel energetic.
Call now and order Ellipse, the seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation. Call and get upgraded to the Deluxe Bundle. Get the faster motor or 5 miles of steps per hour, the step counter, the sport mat, and
the Frankly Speaking Roof Cam. Yes, the Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So Meghan McCain, who is not what you would call obviously a full-throated Trump supporter, she slammed her ex-ABC colleague, Martha Raddatz, over that interview that we discussed yesterday on the program, where Raddatz downplayed the apartment takeovers by Venezuelan migrant gang members in Aurora, Colorado, saying that the incidents involving the ruthless Tren de Argua, I don't think I'm saying that right at all, Argua, crime syndicate were, quote, limited to a handful. Imagine that. And even J.D. Vance saying, do you hear yourself? Well, Meghan McCain was left in disbelief over the line of questioning. Quote, it's really insane Martha and her producers didn't see how awful her line of questioning sounds to a normal person. I'm sure she would have a different feeling if she lived next to an apartment complex filled with Venezuelan gangs, or just owned an apartment complex, lived in an apartment complex in Colorado specifically. McCain, a former co-host on ABC's The View, added that Raddatz sounded psychotic during her interview. She sounds psychotic, like completely psychotic. Now, during the exchange, Vance, seemingly taken aback, told Raddatz, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border. I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused on nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs. McCain, the daughter of late Senator John McCain, of course, has mocked former President Trump in the past, but she has recently fumed over the way Vice President Harris has been invoking her father's memory on the campaign trail, recently saying, now, I know Democrats want to reinvent history and turn my dad into any illusion you guys need him to be, depending on the political moment you need to, we'll say, use his memory for. But please don't make me start sharing what I remember him actually saying about Kamala Harris. And consider this my final warning. I will start spilling tea, meaning releasing the information. But yes, calling out Martha Raddatz, going back to that idea that the newsrooms are dying. Think of that. Think that that was, I guess, a approved line of questioning, or that she thought that was a good line of questioning, saying it was just a handful of apartments taken over by Venezuelan gangs. It goes to show you how out of touch they are, how blinded by hatred for Trump and Vance that they are, that seemed reasonable to say, that seemed acceptable to say and question in that way, just as an opportunity so you could attack Trump and attack Vance. It is, and there's something about these hosts that want to fact check all the time, and that's what she was attempting to do, an awkward fact check. Well, it's just a handful of apartments taken over by these gangs. So the fact check in this scenario, like they always are, is to try to attack Trump and Vance and the ticket, and use it under the guise of fact-checking. And it goes to show you how out of touch and in their own bubble they are, where everyone around them can't stand what Trump has to say, can't stand what J.D. Vance has to say. And it shows when they're interviewing the candidates. their anger. So there you go. For Meghan McCain to say enough is enough. Oh, speaking of that with the media, there's an interesting piece. Do I want to jump right to this? And it was around, it's based on Tim Walz, and it's Jonathan Turley. And as you know, we quote Jonathan Turley quite frequently on this program. He said roughly 5 centuries ago, a new dance first reported in Germany was promptly dubbed the waltz. We all know that. Today, there's no more nimble performer than that dizzying dance than Democrat vice presidential nominee Tim Walz. Indeed, waltzing has become the Minnesota governor's signature political two-step after his controversial statement on his allegedly socialist views, eliminating the Electoral College and other topics. On Sunday, Walz's dance partner was Fox News host Shannon Bream, who seemed to be fighting vertigo as the candidate tried to deflect his shocking prior statements on free speech. Bream asked Walz about his prior declaration that there is, quote, no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, a statement that runs counter to decades of Supreme Court decisions. Walz notably did not deny or retract his statement. Instead, his interview ironically became itself a flagrant example of misinformation. First of all, misinformation and hate speech are not exceptions to the First Amendment. Yet both Harris and Walz are true believers in the righteousness of censorship for disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. I don't know what that one is. The Biden administration defines misinformation as, quote, false, but not created or shared with the intention of causing harm, meaning it would subject you to censorship even if you are not intending harm. It defines malinformation as based on fact, but used out of context to mislead, harm, or manipulate. So you could post true facts, but would still be subjected to censorship if you are viewed as misleading others with your pesky truth-telling. Furthermore, book bans are not equivalent to the Harris-Walz censorship policies. After years of supporting censorship and blacklisting, Democrats are attempting to deflect questions by claiming that the GOP is the greater threat. Quote, we're seeing censorship coming in forms of book banning in different places, Walz told Beam. We're seeing attempts in schools. First, a reality check. The Biden-Harris administration has helped fund and actively support the largest censorship system in our history, a system described by one federal court as Orwellian. These are actual and unrelenting efforts to target individuals and groups for opposing views on subjects ranging from gender identity to climate change to COVID to election fraud. While Walz and others rarely specifically reference the book bans in question, Florida is one state whose law concerns age limits on access to graphic or sexual material in schools. School districts have always been given wide latitude in making decisions on curriculum. Indeed, while rarely mentioned by the media, the left has demanded the banning of or alteration of a number of classic books, including To Kill a Mockingbird, Of Mice and Men, and others. I have long opposed actual book bans perpetrated by both the left and the right, said Jonathan Turley. However, school districts have always made such access and curriculum decisions. Finally, Walz and others often sell censorship by citing the dangers of child pornography or of threats made against individuals. Walz on Sunday followed Hillary Clinton's recent pro-censorship campaign as he employed much misdirection, saying, quote, the issue on this was the hate speech and the protected hate speech, speech that's aimed at creating violence, speech that's aimed at threats to individuals. That's what we're talking about in this. First, he said there is no protected hate speech. Second, the law already provides ample protection against threats made towards individuals. What's most striking is that after years of unapologetically embracing censorship, the left does not seem to want to discuss it this election. Democrats in Congress opposed every major effort to investigate the role of the Biden administration in the social media censorship system it constructed. Many denied any such connection. Elon Musk ended much of that debate with the release of the Twitter files, showing thousands of emails from the administration targeting individuals and groups with opposing views. Now the public is being asked to vote for the most anti-free speech ticket in century. But neither Harris nor Walz want to talk about it in any detail. The result may be the largest bait and switch in history. Walz, Clinton, and others also falsely claim that they're simply trying to stop things like child pornography, which is already covered by existing criminal laws. But what many of the left want is to regain what Clinton called their loss of, quote, control over what we are allowed to say or hear on social media. And because they always had the full impact of the media was always on their side to push their narratives. And now that they see other outlets not sharing their message wholeheartedly, they want to censor. Make no mistake about it. The waltzing of free speech is one dance you'd be wise to decline. Otherwise, do not be surprised if when the music stops, you find yourself without both your partner and your free speech. I thought that was an important message from Jonathan Turley. Your thoughts as we go to a break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Attention, Elmaron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmaron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmaron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmaron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
When you never have to worry about thinking too big? Because you have a connection that's ready for anything. That's Life Unlimited. That's Spectrum.
Lease a brand new 2024 Subaru Crosstrek Limited all-wheel drive featuring power moonroof and heated seats for only $369 a month for 36 months. Make car buying simple. Drive your deal at Simmons Rockwell Subaru in Bay.
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
Order, call 1-800-970-9843. That's 1-800-970-9843, or go to getbullseyepro.com. Big Fox presents Preparing to Cast Your Vote, an informative special that takes a look at everything you need to know to cast your ballot this election season. This special will air at the following times. The Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Beautiful view of historic Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Let's get to some comments from viewers. I'll start worrying about UFOs when they show up at polling places. We were talking about the drones and the suggestion there was a bigger drone ship releasing the drones. Aliens do not want another Trump administration. That's right. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Political correctness is a prime example of the Democrats' erosion of free speech. Good morning, by the way. Well, good morning. Yes, we see this political correctness in so many ways, in so many aspects of our lives. Another comment from a different viewer. Is the Democrats' whole plan to get votes to insult each type of society? I would like to believe people are more informed now than ever before. I believe so. There's so many actual outlets. You don't have to go to just the mainstream media and be pushed with this kind of bias that we've been talking about all morning long. Now, this was mentioned by a viewer early on this morning. Bill Clinton blamed the Biden administration for not vetting Laken Riley's alleged murderer. I'm not sure he meant to do what he ultimately did. But he said, you got a case in Georgia not very long ago, didn't you? They made an ad about it, a young woman who had been killed by an immigrant. Clinton said, yeah, well, if they'd all been properly vetted, that probably wouldn't have happened, the former president said. Yep. You're right. Riley's accused murderer is Jose Olbera, a Venezuelan migrant who has ties to the dangerous TDA gang, Tren de Aruga. and entered America illegally in September of 2022 during Harris's tenure as President Biden's so-called border czar, along with his girlfriend and her 5-year-old son. Ibarra was arrested in El Paso, Texas, but was released on parole after fewer than 24 hours in custody due to lack of detention capacity and told to report to authorities in October of this year. In August of 2023, Ibarra was arrested by the NYPD and charged with riding a gas-powered moped with Franco's son on the back without any head protection or restraint for the child. Ibarra was ultimately released and fled to Georgia to be with his brother Diego, who is also linked to that Venezuelan gang. And you know the rest. The former president, Bill Clinton, repeated that assertion Monday, admitting during an appearance in Columbus that Americans don't want chaos at the border, but adding that Americans are not at replacement level, which means we've got to have somebody come here if we want to keep growing the economy. Unlike one of you with these artificial intelligence genius can figure out how we can all grow with no work. Clinton also came out in support of a bipartisan spending bill that Democrats have tried to push as evidence they wanted to fix the border. Quote, it was on a silver platter, a new direction to manage an immigration crisis in a tough time where there's all this upheaval all around the world. Wow, it's talking about upheaval. Highlighting some things I can't imagine you'd want to be highlighting. But blaming Trump for killing the bill, which is a common talking point. And it still shocks me that Bill Clinton, after they made that big stink about having him give speeches and be a part of campaigns because of the Me Too movement and his questionable background, even Gillibrand distancing herself from him. Now that he's back on the campaign trail, now he's welcomed with open arms. We saw it with the fundraiser when Biden was still running. I guess he's a good campaigner. But as the New York Post editorial board says, we don't agree with Democrats often. Hold on, I'm going to take a quick break because I hear some loud noises in the background. I don't want to bleeding through. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now is the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's Hot Tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
Order call 1-800-970-9843. That's 1-800-970-9843, or go to getbullseyepro.com.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselsen studio. And you see Market Street this morning. And our camera brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. All right, a comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. There are only a few spy balloons and drones flying around. Just look at the stars and be joyful. You're right. There are only a few. Just like there's only a few apartment complexes being taken over by Venezuelan gangs. So just be happy. Back to this piece. And sorry, there's just some noise out on the street and it was distracting. So I wanted to take a break when we needed to take a break anyway. So it all worked out well. The New York Post editorial board says we don't agree with Democrats often, but Bill Clinton truly nailed it Monday when he admitted Laken Riley's murder, quote, probably wouldn't have happened if migrants had all been properly vetted. Correct. Bubba, they said here, was supposedly stumping for Kamala Harris, trying to defend her horrific record as border czar when he accidentally told the truth. The 22-year-old Georgia student's accused killer, Jose Ibarra, had crossed in the United States illegally in 2022 and got promptly released into the interior. Clinton tried to shift blame to Donald Trump, who he claimed is responsible for killing that bipartisan border bill that Democrats insist would have fixed everything. Except for the fact that Ibarra was set free in 2022 when Democrats controlled Congress, while that bill didn't even surface until this year. So what he did, and then, they're not focusing on this, the media's not focusing on this, he just proved the point that Republicans have been making about Kamala Harris and her title of border czar. So nothing in that bill, because that bill wasn't even before Congress when he was released. So nothing in that bill would have stopped what ultimately happened. So yes, there should have been vetting. Bill Clinton is exactly right. And of course, Trump as president set up numerous safeguards to keep illegal migrants like Ibarra out of the country. Even those seeking asylum had to wait in Mexico until their cases could be heard under Trump's migrant protection protocols. Yet from the moment President Biden and border czar Kamala Harris took office, they scrapped every last protection Trump erected, including the Remain in Mexico program. If you recall, they were proud of that. That was something that they campaigned on, and it was within the first week with executive orders that all the good, important work that Donald Trump had done on the border was erased. Almost anyone requesting asylum, no matter how bogus the ask or frightening their criminal background or terror ties, gets in. Virtually no questions asked. And we've seen the repercussions, the tragedy here with Laken Riley, but we've seen the potential for terrorist type attacks. Indeed, along with violent criminals, Harris Biden's policies have let in thousands of illegal migrants from countries that are hotbeds of terrorism. Hundreds of migrants with links to terror are said to be free roaming the U.S. streets, and it is terrifying. It should be terrifying. Okay, I got to take a short break. Stay with us. We're going to go to an interview. Stay with us. This is getting crazy. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Akam, and we are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. And joining me over Zoom this morning is Billy Joe Jones. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being on.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Well, congratulations on the new album, Some Girls Don't Cry. Tell us about the process of recording this album.
Yeah, so this album, oh my gosh, it's my first ever country album that I've ever put out. So it's been a long time coming, but we had so much fun doing this album. I recorded it in Nashville with Dolly Parton's producer, Kent Wells.
Oh, wow.
And so every song on there is recorded and produced by him. And so I absolutely love the album. There's so many great hits on there. We already have officially today 2 number ones in Texas.
Congratulations.
Off of the album,
wow.
So far. And we're still releasing songs, to radio off of there. So, but the whole process was amazing. It took about a year or so to get everything done and recorded.
Sure.
And now it's out. So it just came out a few weeks ago, and everyone seems to be loving it. So hopefully, have some new people on here that watch your show, and they'll go listen to it and let me know what you think, because I love honest feedback. So.
Yeah. Is it intimidating recording with someone that recorded with Dolly Parton?
100%.
Yeah, okay.
It definitely, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
It definitely is, but it's one of those things that we have grown like a really great relationship with each other, and he has made me an even better artist and pushed me, above notes that I thought I could hit So we do really, really well together. And we're already starting to record the second album, so it's going really good.
Oh, wow. So I saw on your website that you have limited edition vinyl of Some Girls Don't Cry. So whether it's when this was first came out or when the vinyl comes out, what does that feel like for you, the artist, to hold that in your hand?
Oh my gosh. I cannot wait to get the vinyl.
Yeah.
I am a huge vinyl girl. If I go to a show, which I don't get to go to a whole lot of shows,
Sure.
so I'm doing my own shows. But when I go to a show, I'm always looking for vinyls. I have a collection of, all the oldies but goodies, what I grew up listening to: Ray Price, Loretta Lynn, Tammy Wynette, George Jones. But now I've got Miranda Lambert's new vinyl, and I have Lainey Wilson's new vinyl. So I just kind of keep adding them to my collection. But when I get that in my hands, I'm telling you, I'm gonna be so excited. They don't ship until October, so I've been itching for it.
I thought maybe you got an early one. I thought they might have gave you the first cut. No.
I wish.
Yeah.
I wish I could get an early one.
So I see that you're kind of described as a traditional roots of country with a modern kind of kick to it. And you just mentioned Ray Price, so which to a lot of viewers is a great name to mention. Tell me about the fact that you one time opened for Ray Price. Is that right?
It is. I was actually 18 years old, and I got to open for Ray Price. We had some mutual friends, and this lady really loved me and my music, and she actually funded my whole gospel album. I did a gospel album when I was 18 years old, and then I got to go and open for Ray Price, and we even shared a birthday party together. And when I was turning 19, and he was turning, I think maybe he was turning 70 something. I don't remember what number it was, but we even shared a birthday party together. So it was a fun time for sure. That man, oh my gosh, that man could sing up until the day that he died.
Yeah.
So he never lost his voice.
Just an amazing voice. And you've opened for or been on the stage even with a lot of legendary performers. That must be such an honor to be sharing the stage with some of the names. I mean, we could go through them, but we don't have all the time actually. So what's that feel like, I suppose? Which is kind of a simple question.
No, it's amazing. It's one of those things that I love, playing my own show and headlining my own show, but I absolutely love getting to, open for other people. Number one, it puts me in front of their crowd and in front of their fans. And then maybe I can, gain their fans from the experience. But not only that, just getting to meet those people and meet those legends. I've never really been starstruck, per se. Except one time, but he's not even a singer. I got to meet Matthew McConaughey. I played a private event for him, so I definitely was. I was fangirling a little bit on that one. But
that's funny.
But everyone else everyone's been amazing. I'm super supportive of the talent that's coming in to open for them. So it's a really great experience.
And we mentioned Ray Price already, and some of the others. Who were your influences growing up? You mentioned gospel music, and I know that you kind of debuted at the local church, which seems to be what every country singer does, as they debut at their local church. So how important was faith in your role throughout your career, and also was that your beginning influences?
Yes, for sure. So my grandparents actually raised me since I was one. So I grew up, going to church, and my favorite gospel hymn is "How Great Thou Art."
Of course.
And so it's my faith is a huge part of who I am and my career and what I stand for. Even the music that I release, I always wanted to reflect on the kind of person that I want to be.
Sure.
So, growing up in church and having that background, I think was very important. And then the way that my grandparents raised me have, definitely made me into the woman that I am today. So.
Sure. And was there country music playing at your grandparents' house? Or were there other influences outside of gospel?
Yes, there was definitely country music. My grandparents would, throw on George Jones and Tammy Wynette and Patsy Cline and all the greats. I love traditional country music, and that's definitely where my heart is. So I'm trying to bring in traditional country and mix it with a little modern flair to it, and that's kind of what my whole album is. So.
When was it that you realized this is what you wanted to do for a living?
Oh man, I would. I was 4 and 5 years old, and I would sit in the living room and get my grandparents to listen to me, and they'd have to clap and cheer and whistle and pretend to call me out on stage, and I knew I wanted to be a singer, and we would listen to the Grand Ole Opry and watch it on TV, and that's always been a big goal of mine, is to be on that stage, and my grandparents have been a big part of that because they've always wanted that for me as well. So I think my answer is I've always known since I was a little girl that I wanted to be a singer.
Sure.
I took a couple of detours, when I got older, but it's my love has always been country music and performing live for people.
And we're talking about the new album, Some Girls Don't Cry. When I know this is your first time recording an album, Did you find that more fun than being on the road and touring, or is it its own separate entity?
Well, I was still touring like while I was recording, so
You got
I
to
didn't
do
get
both.
to just sit and like
Okay.
do the whole album like at the same time. Like I would go in and do songs, 2 or 3 songs at one time, and then come back to Nashville and do 2 or 3 songs at another time. So I didn't get to just sit and record the whole album at the same time. So I was still doing both, which
Okay.
I love going and touring and performing, and I play shows every single weekend. So it's always a fun time, and especially if I can make both of it. If I can do both at the same time, I'm definitely going to do that because I don't want to take away from, going and playing shows either.
Yeah, of course. And one thing, and we're talking about the album "Some Girls Don't Cry." What I think is really interesting is a song title. I haven't listened to it yet. Tell me about the song, if you don't mind. "Can't Take Keith Whitley Tonight." That's like such a perfect name for a song.
Yay! I came up with that.
Did you?
So that makes me so
Yeah.
happy. That's one of the songs that I co-wrote.
Yeah.
I kept singing like this little melody, and I kept saying over and over again, "I just can't take Keith Whitley tonight."
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do I keep saying this? That doesn't make sense. And I love Keith Whitley,
Yeah.
so it's not like, it's not a dig on Keith Whitley or
No.
anything. He's one of my huge influences in country music. And so I took it to the guy that owns my label, Lynn Snow. He's also a big songwriter on my whole album. And I was like, hey, I've got this idea. And it's kind of weird because I just keep saying it over and over and over again. But I've got this idea. And then I told him, and 30 minutes later, we had a song.
That's perfect.
So it's pretty much it's talking about how you're sitting there in a bar and another Keith Whitley song comes
Right.
on, and like you're already in that moment where you're feeling heartbreak, and you just don't want to feel,
Of course.
you don't want to hear a love song,
Right.
you want to hear a fast dancing song or something. You don't want to hear a love song. So I just can't take Keith Whitley tonight is pretty much what it is. Y'all got to go check it out because it's one of my favorites on the whole album.
Yeah, I was gonna say it just seemed. As soon as I read the title, I think we've all experienced that, right? Where it's you had that kind of day or that section of your life, and you love Keith Whitley, but that might not be the right time to fall down that rabbit hole, right?
Yes, yeah, and it's even very Keith Whitley-ish. Like
Oh,
we
oh, that's cool.
and we threw a few like Keith Whitley song titles like in the verses
Oh,
as
very
well.
nice.
Like so, it's kind of it's really cool.
Oh.
I love how it came out, and it's one of my favorites on the album.
Oh, that's great. We're talking about the new album, "Some Girls Don't Cry." It's out now. A couple quick things just I want to hit on doing some research. First of all, how neat was it to be a part of Helping a Hero with Lee Greenwood?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I got to step on the Grand Ole Opry stage.
Yeah.
I did not go in the circle because that is sacred and that is hopefully meant for another time in my
Yeah.
life. But I got to be a part of that whole benefit concert that they did at the Grand Ole Opry, and got to meet some incredibly well-known legends on that stage. And it was a night to remember for sure. And I hope to be a part of that again because what they do for the wounded warriors it's amazing.
It really is.
I absolutely loved being a part of it. So
And Lee Greenwood, of course, known really for doing that. And
Yes.
what a nice guy. I had him on the show a few times. He's just a super nice guy, isn't he?
yes, he
Yeah.
is. He's the nicest, and his wife is absolutely beautiful, and one of the sweetest women I've ever met. So
And then the next thing up, because I do my research here, tell us about this. I saw on Facebook about you potentially being in the running for the NFR experience and singing the national anthem.
I am. So everyone submitted their national. So I sing the national anthem a lot.
Sure.
I sing, Texas Rangers here in Arlington, Texas, the big baseball team, and so I submitted my national anthem video, and there was probably over 100 people that did. So we put it up, and then everyone had to vote on who their favorites were, and I made the top 30.
Congratulations.
And now we wait, and I think the judges are picking the top 8 out of the 30. And then September 25th, you'll get to vote again, and if I'm in the top 8, then I need y'all to help me get to the top 2. Because if you make the top 2, you get to sing the national anthem at the NFR, which is a huge honor, and something I've really wanted to do for a very long time. So
And that's in Vegas, right? That's in Vegas.
Yeah, it's in Vegas. Yeah, I go every year anyway. It's a thing that my husband and I and his family have done for many years, and I started playing at different places in Cowboy Christmas that goes on out there, and it's a lot of fun. So y'all should check it out sometime.
So we have to wait until the top 8, but how can we help? What's the best way to do it?
The best way is watch my Facebook, watch my website. It'll probably be one of the first things that pops up on there. If y'all just watch my website, I think around either September 25th or 26th, I'll know if I made the top 8, and then I'll put a link on there for y'all to click. And it doesn't even, like, they don't even send you spam. Like, all you have to do is go find me, click my picture, type in your email address, and submit. Like, they won't even send you, you know, because a lot of people are like, I don't want to go put my email address in and get all that spam, but they
Get all
really
the
don't even
updates.
send you anything. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. It's nice that it's a free experience for the voters. You know how you go to those ones that outbid each
I
other?
know where you have to pay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
No.
I don't want to have to, you know, ask people for their hard-earned money for
Exactly.
that. So I like competitions that do that.
And I think that's a really neat idea from them to set this up, because what a patriotic thing. You know what I mean? To have a competition for the national anthem. I thought it was a wonderful idea. So,
yes.
All right, before we go, a couple quick ones that you probably get a lot. What is the favorite part of your job? What do you look forward to the most when you wake up in the morning?
I absolutely love getting to meet people.
Yeah.
So if my favorite thing, I love performing on stage. Like I turn into a completely different person.
Yeah.
I put on, you know, a great show full of energy. But while I'm on stage, all I'm thinking about is, okay, how many people are going to come over to the merch booth and come see me? Because I don't even care I would love for you to buy something.
Sure.
I don't even care if you buy something. I just want to sign something for you, give you a business card, shake your hand, give you a hug, and take a picture with you. So I'm telling you, I probably am going to start getting in trouble for it, but I will stand out there at my merch booth and do that for like an hour after my performance when, you know, everyone's, you know, trying to pack up, ready to go home, and I'm still trying to talk to people.
sign and
I just love it.
So it's not a quick autograph experience. You keep talking to them.
No, I'm just going to keep talking, and if they keep talking, I'm going to keep talking, and then they'll tell me about their life story, and then I'll tell them about mine. And
Yeah, that's funny. Now, before we go, where can people find out more? You mentioned your website. Are you on all social media, I assume?
Yes, so my website, BillieJoJones.com. It's BillieJoJones.com. And then you can find all of my social media links, my Spotify, my Apple Music, my TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. All that good stuff is on there. So whatever you need to find is on there.
Is that like a full day's job, like just dealing with all that social media?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think we're honestly about to hopefully find someone to help me with social media, because I take care of all of it, and I do my own booking, and I love to be in control. So, you know, it's one of those things, and so it's going to be a little bit hard for me to let go.
You'll micromanage.
Where, I can't keep up with it anymore.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, all those bots and the spammers, you know, the t-shirt sales on Facebook, that's out of control.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a mess.
It's overwhelming.
So I need some help.
Yes. Well, best of luck, of course, and they're already having luck with Some Girls Don't Cry, the new album. And again, the vinyl, limited edition vinyl comes out in October, so you can order that on the website. And we just got to say before we go, I hope that you can make a tour stop here in New York sometime.
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love that.
We'd love to see you. So thanks so much for being on the show, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Sorry I didn't promote the Billie Joe Jones interview. That was kind of in my back pocket for some upcoming day, but it worked out well because I think someone on the street might have over-imbibed last night and seemed angry, not at me, angry maybe at the world. And if any of the things he was saying bled through onto the microphone, we could have been in a lot of trouble. So I thought it was maybe a better idea here this morning to play that interview. So sorry to surprise you with that and not give you more opportunity to be ready for it. But I really appreciate it, Billy Joe Jones, for being on the program this morning. Okay. We were talking about, it got loud. I don't think you could hear it, but it got loud out there on the street. But we were talking about Bill Clinton getting it right, saying that Harris and Biden's broken border led to Lake and Riley's murder. And we'll just wrap up with what New York Post had to say. The Harris campaign has pulled out the Democrat Party luminaries to make the case for her. But first Barack Obama and now Bill Clinton have failed. Maybe there's just no good argument to make. There we go. All right. Wrapping up our number one. Oh, by the way, do I have time? No, I don't have time. All right. Wrapping up our number one. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. One comment from viewer before we go and wrap up this hour. Thank you for fighting a good fight up there. I had just had enough of the wokeness, and I moved here, moved out of state when I thought Hillary Clinton was going to be president. I understand. In New York State is, well, you know, we've talked about it a million times on this program. There's upstate and then there's the city, and unfortunately our policies are controlled by the city. I have some examples of that, such as a piece that New York Democrats want companies to pay for polluting the air with fossil fuels. You can imagine where that cost goes, right, to us, the taxpayers that have stayed here, and the people that have to pay our bills that have stayed here. But we got to take a break. Wrapping up hour number one. Stay with us. Hour number two, mere moments away.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Hi, I'm Sam. Welcome to Pangea Global Tea House.
Pangea Global Tea House offers comfort foods of the world. Over 50 teas, a sampling of cuisine from over 10 countries. Globally inspired cuisine and striving to give you an ultimate experience. Come in and try the frankly delicious Turkey Club special for just $20, including your beverage of choice. Pangea Global Tea House. Yet a really good tea house bringing you the flavors of the world, offering something for everyone.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Isn't your list important? Don't you want more energy? Now is the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's Hot Tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Hagum. Thank you so much for joining us. We had a jam-packed first hour. Now let's start with hour number 2. By the way, as Bill Clinton was campaigning for Kamala Harris, who we had mentioned earlier when he inadvertently admitted that Harris and Biden's border policies is what led to Laken Riley's murder. Just as a side note, did you see that he walked into a McDonald's restaurant and the employee there confused him with Joe Biden? Really. Honest mistake, but thought it was Joe Biden. And then he introduced himself as Bill Clinton, and they were excited. They got their picture and all that. A little bit of miscommunication there. Now, NBC polling analyst says that Kamala Harris's 5-point advantage in the previous polls are now gone. It has completely reversed in recent days, and that's perhaps why you see now the announcement that she wants to have an interview with Joe Rogan. It sounds like there is a scheduled interview with Fox later. I believe it may even be today. We'll get to that in just a moment. Harris, once touted by many of her supporters as the inevitable winner of the 2024 election, but with less than a month before the election, the race appears to be at a dead heat. NBC Today host Savannah Guthrie discussed how recent polling shows the race deadlocked. Guthrie then did a deep dive on the numbers and said, quote, "I mean, the top line is the 5-point advantage that Kamala Harris had in our last poll is gone. What's behind that shift?" On the program with her, Steve Kornacki, contrasting previous polling that took place after the Trump-Harris debate versus now, amid Harris's media blitz. The polling showed Trump has risen from 44% to 48%, whereas Harris has declined from 49% to 48%. In one noteworthy poll, however, Harris has declined significantly, as Kornacki noted. Some things that have changed in that time. I think this might be the biggest for Harris. We just asked the basic image perception people have. Is it positive or negative of these candidates? The Trump number's always been somewhere in this territory, gesturing around 43% positive, 51% negative. In fact, that is a little bit high for him, believe it or not. But he said that Harris's numbers have notably changed. But look at Harris, 43% positive, 49% negative. The significance, we pulled this a month ago, she was at 48 positive and 45 negative. Well, I think you've had some interviews that have not gone great for her. You've had the media blitz that didn't really help her campaign along. The momentum kind of fizzling out. But Kamala Harris is set to do an interview with Fox News, the network has announced. The interview with Fox News chief political anchor Bret Baier will take place near Philadelphia tomorrow, shortly before it airs at 6 p.m. Eastern. On Mr. Baier's program, Special Report. Ms. Harris is expected to sit for 25 to 30 minutes of questioning. Wow. This is Kamala Harris's first formal interview with Fox News, whose day-to-day programming is heavy on conservative punditry that often explicitly supports a Republican opponent. I don't know if I totally agree with that statement coming from DNYUZ.com. But this will give Harris a chance to deliver her message to a viewership that may be skeptical of her candidacy. I will say it probably shows you more than any poll what they're hearing. You know, you heard there from NBC. You've seen other outlets. This is a prime example of their internal polling telling her she needs to get out there. She needs to do more media appearances. And they can't all be friendly. They can't all be The View. They can't all be Stephen Colbert, because she already has that audience. That's already her, for lack of a better word, demographic. So she needs to go out on a limb and look for other voters who may be, as they say here, skeptical of her message. And this also may help in the idea that she cannot face negative questions, that she cannot do an interview, that she can only really rely on friendly outlets and telepromptered speeches. So this could dissuade some people and say, wait a minute, or maybe persuade some people that, okay, she is willing to take on the tougher questions. Now, I do think Fox News is fair, so I believe that it won't be some gotcha, which unfortunately is what, in my opinion, the Sunday shows have turned into when it comes to Republican candidates, going after Republican candidates. So it's just interesting that one interview is so newsworthy. Senior Democratic officials have long shown hostility towards Fox News, going so far as to formally bar the network from hosting a primary debate back in 2020. Hillary Clinton in 2016 was the last Democratic presidential nominee to sit for a Fox News interview. Wow. President Biden has not appeared on the network since taking office, though he has jousted at news conferences with its senior White House correspondent, Peter Doocy. But Harris's running mate, Governor Tim Walz, was interviewed on Fox News Sunday the past 2 weekends. In recent months, the network has also welcomed a string of Harris supporters, including Governor Gavin Newsom, Governor Josh Shapiro, and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who is now such a regular that he joked at the Democratic convention, "You may recognize me from Fox News." This will be interesting. So again, CBS the 60 Minutes did not go well for her. We know that was selectively edited even. We're not sure. Fox News is recording ahead of time, but not by much, just shortly before it airs at 6 p.m. That's more of, I'm sure, a logistical component to that. So 6 p.m. tomorrow on Fox News, we'll see Kamala Harris sit down for that 25 to 30-minute interview. Could be very interesting. Now that she's also, her campaign anyway, is in talks with Joe Rogan about a possible appearance on his podcast. Harris campaign officials met with Rogan's team this week to discuss the potential interview, according to Reuters. The outlet notes that a sit-down between the Democratic nominee and the host of the Joe Rogan Experience has not yet been confirmed. And a lot of people have said, and I don't know enough about Joe Rogan's podcast, but I know that they have put a lot of importance, because of his demographic, on an endorsement by Joe Rogan as the election nears. Now, many people believe that he is a Trump supporter, but then at other times he's been critical of the administration. He has a very different interview style from what I've seen, so that could be interesting if he interviews Kamala Harris. It'll be interesting on Fox as well, because again, we haven't seen these interviews. Many speculating that CBS 60 Minutes would be her last interview, but must be these internal polls or the polls in general have her campaign worried. We know it has Democrats worried. We brought that to you yesterday. Some of the quotes from people like James Carville, some consultants saying you've got to get out there. You've got to have your policies and your voice heard, or because this basement campaign is not working effectively. Now, you may say that the polls are completely tied up, Frank. So, obviously she wants to be up, but why is she this concerned? Well, many have speculated, again, not to keep throwing around the term speculated, that she would need to be up 6% to feel even a little bit comfortable, because Trump historically polls lower than the actual voting turnout. And there's a lot of reasons there. The reason that I believe is there's many people that don't want to say they support Trump because it could cost them friends, families, jobs. But at the end of the day, when they go into the voting booth, they're willing to pull that lever for the former president. So Rogan has not publicly commented on Trump's apparent upcoming appearance and his team's talk with Harris. Well, that is interesting. So he is, and I assumed he would be in talks with Trump and having Trump on. But interesting beginning to the week for Harris's campaign, agreeing to do Fox tomorrow and now looking to do Joe Rogan. We don't know what else is to come. Obviously, she's still out campaigning heavily, as we've seen. Now, she is getting more aggressive with her messaging, as we had mentioned from a viewer who said that she has a new ad out, which I have not seen, but calling Trump unhinged. She did the same at her rally in Erie, Pennsylvania, saying Donald Trump is increasingly unstable and unhinged. He is out for unchecked power. That's what he's looking for. He wants to send the military after American citizens. Now, I think many of us, our thoughts when you hear that kind of rhetoric coming from the nominee concerns you. Obviously, you've had, depending on who you talk to, which is ridiculous, but 2 to 3 assassination attempts on the former President Trump. So some of this idea of calming down the rhetoric, it doesn't seem to have stuck. It doesn't seem to have stuck, or if it has, I'm completely missing the point. The rhetoric here is getting dangerous when you start calling someone a threat to democracy over and over again. You say that he's unhinged, wants unchecked power. He wants to send the military after American citizens. Now, the 59-year-old Democrat nominee's new line of attack against Trump, the subject of at least 2 assassination attempts in recent months, comes after the former president previously blamed the rhetoric of Harris and President Biden for an attempt on his life in Palm Beach, Florida last month. And he, of course, Donald Trump, received a lot of criticism for that, for saying that this rhetoric is not helping matters any. Their rhetoric is causing me to be shot at, Trump said back in September. He believed the rhetoric of Biden and Harris, and he acted on it. Now, I don't think we're going to see any, especially as there is a little bit of a fear out there because the poll numbers aren't what they were hoping it to be. So there's a little fear out there. And so now you're going to see stronger rhetoric like that, dangerous rhetoric in some ways, and you're also going to see apparently more appearances in various news outlets. CNN's Stephen Collinson saying Harris warns unhinged Trump is out for total power. The vice president warned Monday that the ex-president was unstable, unhinged, and out for unchecked power as she sent a jolt of urgency through her campaign with 21 days to go. Quote, watch his rallies, listen to his words. He tells us who he is, and he tells us what he would do if he is elected president. Democrat vice presidential nominee Tim Walz, meanwhile, went even further, suggesting that ex-president's musings about using the military against domestic foes, he branded, quote, the enemy from within, could even amount to treason. Harris and her team also aggressively questioned Trump's mental fitness and his capacity to serve another term. And to that viewer's point earlier, it was either late yesterday or earlier today, it's interesting that the media is now calling, and I know ABC was doing this over the weekend, calling for Trump's mental health records to be released, which he did. I mentioned that to you at the beginning of the program, and the kind of breaking story there. But it's interesting they're calling for that now when for 3.5 years you had to ignore what was right in front of your face with Joe Biden. You couldn't question it. It was wrong to question it. Of course, they weren't going to release his medical reports. But anyway, so Harris warning that Trump is unhinged and questioning his mental acuity, and Tim Walz going as far as saying that what Trump says could be treason, which is interesting, going back to that point that we had from Jonathan Turley earlier on in the program about Walz's penchant for censorship and promoting a form of censorship. And wouldn't that be exactly what that is if you get someone for treason in that instance, but going back to the lawfare that has been used. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmaron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmaron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmaron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmaron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Wow, you found it.
I did.
The History of Water Part 6? I've been dying to read this.
I know, honey.
I always wanted that book.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install one of our high-efficiency water softeners, we're thinking about hard water and limescale buildup, so you can just think about longer-lasting appliances and softer skin and hair. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning, New York is a local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years' experience. From service and repair to new installations, trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
One scorching heat wave will leave me powerless to cool my insulin.
When the storm rolls in, my time to find a pet-friendly evacuation center will have run out. I'm relying on luck, but who knows if it'll be on my side.
When it comes to disasters and emergencies, it's not a matter of if, but when. Take control. 1. Assess your needs. 2. Make a plan. 3. Engage your support network. Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell.
The Bix website is
It's here, now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news, here, now. WYDCTV.com.
Our beautiful view of Market Street brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, as always, and very proudly. So we were talking about the rhetoric, another piece of rhetoric coming from James Carville this morning. And this is a new, I shouldn't say new, this is a comparison that some of the political commentators have been making as of late, which is the fact that Trump has announced that he's going to have a rally at Madison Square Garden, which is historic. It's been the site of numerous political conventions and rallies. Well, now they've continued to make that comparison between Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden to that of the American Nazi rally back in 1939. I'm not going to tell you everything that James Carville had to say. You get the idea. But it goes back to this idea of rhetoric. As the poll numbers are not necessarily in Harris's favor, not where she wants them to be, you're starting to see more of a kind of a dangerous rhetoric coming out. And I don't think it heals us as a nation. That's for sure. At CNN, Bob Woodward, they claim, issues a stark warning on Trump weeks before Election Day. Yes, they are trying to bring back up that book that kind of made the news cycle for a couple days and then kind of went by the wayside. But in the book, he's suggesting that he's, of course, Trump is friends with Putin and these type of things. Okay, so back to Kamala Harris, and we are going to talk about Trump's campaign. We have a couple of New York State issues, too, that I think are worth mentioning that we'll probably get to when we're headed out the door type scenario. But Kamala Harris, on Monday, issued, I guess you would call it another word salad. I wish we had another term for that. It's starting to get overused, but served up another word salad, which will be interesting. People, of course, will be watching Fox News' interview for that exact reason. A 25 to 30 minute, probably tougher interview than she's used to. Will it lead to many of these word salads? That's what happened to CBS's 60 Minutes. They showed it in the promo. It started receiving criticism. It started to hurt the Harris campaign. So what did CBS do? They took it down, edited it, and made it a little more clear and concise and put it on the final broadcast. I don't think that will happen at Fox. I guess time will tell. But Harris appeared to have her head in the clouds, says the New York Post, during an interview with Black Star Network host Roland Martin. Oh, I forgot about Roland Martin. He used to be on CNN, right? When answering a question about what she called opponent Donald Trump's fixation on crime in Democrat-run cities. Isn't that interesting? It's a fixation. Okay, quote, I talked with somebody once who said, you know, if you just look at where the stars are in the sky, don't look at them as just random things. If you just look at them as points, look at the constellation. What does it show you? So you just outlined it, Roland. What does it show you? That the cities that he picks on in terms of black population or black mayor or both, come on. Yep, that was a whole statement. I'm not really sure. They're calling the statement Galileo Harris. And I know I don't like to get into the habit of just reading quotes, but let me do it one more time just so we can see if we can understand it together. Quote, I talked with somebody once who said, you know, if you look at where the stars are in the sky, don't look at them as just random things. If you just look at them as points, look at the constellation. What does it show you? So you just outlined it, Roland. What does it show you? That the cities that he picks on in terms of black population or black mayor or both, come on. I got a little bit of Joe Biden there with the come on. She didn't say man, of course. Some Twitter users accused Harris of being under the influence of something. Because of the quote. This is what you know what? I'm not going to read some of these quotes that people are saying about her speech, but one Twitter user calling her Galileo Harris. Meanwhile, President Xi Jinping and Putin are licking their chops, one warned. So, here's another example. All right, moving along here. Oh, this is an interesting, again, kind of in line, which has been a trend this morning. I didn't mean it to be, but this sort of censorship or trying to silence the opponent. And we talked about the rhetoric getting worse and worse. Did you see that Representative Maxwell Frost was on CNN's Out Front yesterday? Maxwell Frost was on with Aaron Burnett. And Aaron Burnett said, I want to ask you one more thing before you go, Congressman. And that is about something our K-File has reported. The Harris had supported taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. And the Trump campaign has seized upon this. They've now just released another ad focused on that. And in this particular ad, Congressman, they're using criticism from radio star Charlemagne, who is a Harris supporter. Then Burnett played the ad. How big of a problem is this for Harris? Do you think that this is a real problem for her or no? So Representative Maxwell Frost from Florida, Democrat from Florida, saying, I don't really think so. We've seen Republicans, especially since the rise of Trump, try to use these kind of bigoted ads and language and strategy, try to demonize trans people or trans kids, and pinning something on Democrats that people really aren't talking about. When I knock doors, people ask me about housing costs, about the economy, gun violence, and things like that. So they're really trying to stir something out of nothing, and through his bigoted lens, and it's really disappointing. I've seen no evidence that these sort of attacks actually work. So it's bigoted to point out her support for tax-funded sex changes for migrants, but it's also at the same time, according to Representative Maxwell Frost, a non-issue. There is a little bit of trouble that we're going to talk about here in just a moment for the Harris campaign. She has been accused of plagiarism in a book that she wrote back in 2019. We'll talk about that. I do have quite a few things here about Trump's campaign as well. Not just Harris's, but again, if you're just joining us, I would say a couple quick announcements. Harris is going to give that interview with Fox News tomorrow at 6 p.m. And also, I mentioned this at the top of the show, is anyone out there, any viewer, going to Williamsport tomorrow? J.D. Vance is going to hold a rally in Williamsport. It was announced, I think, yesterday or maybe late the day before on Sunday. But yes, J.D. Vance will be in Williamsport, a little over an hour away here from Corning. Will you be attending that rally? I'd love to hear from you. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
The bathroom of your dreams is only a phone call away with BCI Bath and Shower. We can make your ordinary bath and shower extraordinary. This is not a cookie-cutter design. This is a complete custom build that will fit your every need. It's never been easier or more affordable than right now to get the bathroom of your dreams. We have the best monthly programs in the industry with payments as low as $99 per month or no payments, no interest for 18 months with approved credit. The hardest part of your new bathroom is gutting and building the tub and shower. If your bathing area is old, there could be damage behind the walls and possible mold and mildew, which can be a serious safety issue. At BCI, we don't cover a problem, we fix it. Call now to get a never-clean glass-treated door with the no-track system at half off for the first 50 callers. Factory-trained, certified installers made in the USA and discounts for seniors and military. Call 800-704-1798. That's 800-704-1798.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers. He connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. that support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.com.
The Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Look at the beautiful clouds. Looks like a painting. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. Comment from a viewer. I'm thinking Harris was trying to do a takeoff on the 1,000 points of light. Oh, that's interesting. With George Bush Sr. But instead, she ended up with a word salad. Yes, Galileo. Harris is what one Twitter user called it. Now, conservative activists, this is coming from CNN. I'm surprised they reported on it, but they did. Conservative activist Christopher Rufo has accused Harris of plagiarizing passages in a co-authored 2009 book. A senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, Christopher Rufo, cited in an online post an analysis by so-called Austrian plagiarism hunter Stefan Weber, alleging Harris lifted verbatim language from uncited sources in the book Smart on Crime, which she co-wrote with Joan O.C. Hamilton. The book, published in 2009, the year before Harris was elected California Attorney General, focuses on policy, drawing from her experience prosecuting crimes that range from child sexual assault to homicide. Rufo, in his post, refers to 6 specific paragraphs from Harris's roughly 200-page book. CNN reviewed several of the passages highlighted by Rufo and found that Harris and O.C. Hamilton failed to properly attribute language to sources. Well, that's a real nice way of putting that. Well, this is trouble because it's painting a larger picture of what we've seen, especially with her running mate Walz, with some fabrications in his background and some questionable statements that he's made. So it's just kind of painting a larger picture, isn't it? Plagiarized works include using someone else's work without giving them proper and appropriate credit for the ideas and words. Even if the source of the information is cited, it is still considered plagiarism if the ideas are not paraphrased or quoted in the correct place, experts told CNN. In one instance, Harris and O.C. Hamilton appear to have lifted some language from a John Jay College of Criminal Justice press release without proper attribution. The book copies exact language in sections of the press release, but fails to use quotation marks in several sentences, according to analysis of the book and the press release. The authors do, however, cite the press release as a source in a footnote next to the text. They also properly attribute other quotes from parts of the press release. So you can see them trying, CNN, trying to do their best to protect her in a way. Harris and O.C. Hamilton cite the study in their book when using the study's statistics, but do not cite the NBC News article. The Harris campaign said that the Democrat presidential candidate clearly cited sources and statistics and footnotes and endnotes throughout the book. Quote, right-wing operatives are getting desperate as they see the bipartisan coalition of support Vice President Harris is building to win this election, as Trump retreats to a conservative echo chamber, refusing to face questions about his lies. This is a book that's been out for 15 years, and the vice president clearly cited sources and statistics and footnotes and endnotes throughout, said Harris's campaign spokesperson, James Singer. Vice presidential candidate Senator J.D. Vance quickly seized on the allegations, posting, laughing symbol, Kamala didn't even write her own book, noting that he wrote his own book in reference to Hillbilly Elegy. Now, they found a total of 24 fragments that are plagiarism from other authors, and 3 fragments are self-plagiarism from a work written with a co-author. Taken in total, there is certainly a breach of standard here. Harris and her co-author duplicated long passages nearly verbatim without proper citation, without quotation marks, which is the textbook definition of plagiarism, Rufo wrote. Fox News Digital independently verified that Harris's book features verbatim and near verbatim reproductions from a 2008 NBC News report, a press release from John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and get this one, a Wikipedia page, and a report from the Bureau of Justice Assistance, among others. And I'm not going to go through each instance of what was said and what wasn't. You can find that for yourself right here at Fox News. Okay. Even the New York Times, and listen, CNN knows there's something to it because CNN is reporting on it. It was on their front page this morning. So they know there's something there. That's why they tried to get ahead of it and put out that article trying to say, well, it's not that bad, or it's maybe not exactly in their definition of plagiarism, or just trying to confuse you on what plagiarism is. But even the New York Times had to admit that Harris's book had plagiarized multiple passages. The book, again, called Smart on Crime. But just like CNN saying at the end, not serious, and a small portion, just a small portion of the whole book. I don't know. Does that pass academic standards? From the New York Times, again, not what you would call a conservative outlet. The passages called into question by Mr. Rufo on his Substack platform involve about 500 words in the approximately 65,000 word, 200-page book. Ms. Harris, the Democratic presidential nominee, wrote the book with another author when she was a district attorney in San Francisco. So you can see there they're trying to kind of throw the other author under the bus. In a review of the book, the New York Times found that none of the passages in question took the ideas or thoughts of another writer, which is considered the most serious form of plagiarism. Instead, the sentences copy descriptions of programs or statistical information that appear elsewhere. Jonathan Bailey, a plagiarism consultant in New Orleans and the publisher of Plagiarism Today, is that real? Is that like a journal, Plagiarism Today? Said on Monday that his initial reaction to Mr. Rufo's claims was that the errors were not serious given the size of the document. Is that how it's looked at in, like, let's say the college setting? Oh, most of the report isn't plagiarized. The Times shifted the focus from Harris to Rufo, whom it implied is a racist. Quote, Mr. Rufo is part of a loose confederation of conservative writers and activists who during the past year have tried to expose plagiarism among academics, many of whom have been black scholars who work in the field of diversity and inclusion. Some academics have characterized the campaign as racist. Now, that's something that's done very often by the media. Some have said, some academics have said, it's a very easy way to not actually have to have a source. So some have said that you did this or you did that. Well, who are these some, right? Who are these academics, and why, if their position on this is so important, why not name them specifically? So that's what you get for exposing that kind of plagiarism. You and your colleagues get called basically a bigot. Now, J.D. Vance, many people showing the difference where J.D. Vance had that best-selling novel, Hillbilly Elegy. And J.D. Vance, as I mentioned, calling it out himself. Hi, I'm J.D. Vance. I wrote my own book, unlike Kamala Harris, who copied hers from Wikipedia. Now, Walls in the past had been critical of a couple things that are really interesting. Critical on J.D. Vance about this book, Hillbilly Elegy, and also critical of him going to, what was it, Princeton? I'm not sure that line of attack. I'm not sure where that comes from. Now, look, this is what Walls said at the time. Now, look, Vance wrote a memoir at the ripe old age of 31, and he claimed to be an expert on Middle America, all the while trashing and denigrating the very community he was raised in. But Walls did not denigrate his community. His memoir is a deeply personal story about overcoming challenges and family instability, but that has been a common talking point. So that's why J.D. Vance jumped on the opportunity to say, hi, I'm J.D. Vance. I wrote my own book, unlike Kamala Harris, who copied hers from Wikipedia. All right, I see some comments coming in. Stay with us. We're going to move on to the Trump campaign when we come back. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Oh, better tasting is better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks are a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen One, the portable oxygen concentrator you can take almost anywhere.
With this little device, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
The Inogen One is so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen One for 30 days completely risk-free. Give us a call right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days completely risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen One system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 1-800-929-7290. Again, that's 1-800-929-7290. That beautiful view brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much for joining us. A comment from a viewer: plagiarism and her as a prosecutor. What else is she capable of? Yes, a former prosecutor and now being charged. Now, that's maybe not the right word. That's a strong word, but it is being suggested that parts of her book have been plagiarized. Okay, talking about the Trump campaign, I had mentioned earlier where people like James Carville and others have tried to compare Trump's upcoming rally, which is now official. We'll get to in just a moment. This kind of ties in with New York policy as well, but his rally at Madison Square Garden, historic Madison Square Garden, trying to liken it to some type of Nazi rally, very disgusting. But President Trump has announced a rally officially at iconic Madison Square Garden in New York. It will be held on October the 27th at 5 p.m. His statement saying New York is reeling from the harmful effects of the dangerously liberal policies championed by Kamala Harris and Democrats like Eric Adams. Since Kamala took office, the average New York household has been forced to spend an additional $28,537, including $4,282 more on food, $4,918 more on shelter, $3,992 more on energy, and $8,912 more on transportation. These disastrous economic policies are draining the bank accounts of hardworking New Yorkers. Additionally, thanks to Kamala's reckless open border policy, over 210,000 migrants have flooded into New York City since the spring of 2022, draining vital government resources and overwhelming the city. The consequences are staggering. The influx of illegal migrants is expected to cost the city a shocking $10 billion, and it's not just the financial burden crime. Just the financial burden. Crime is spiraling out of control. According to local police officers, illegal immigrants are responsible for up to about 75% of arrests in Midtown Manhattan. Last month, a new news report sounded alarms after an illegal Venezuelan migrant with suspected gang ties allegedly committed 22 crimes in just 6 months. Yet he still hasn't been deported. This is the chaos Harris has unleashed on New Yorkers. President Trump's message to New York City is simple: and build on his winning record. If you want to return to the strongest economy in over 60 years, rising wages, quality jobs, strong borders, and safer neighborhoods, and vote for the Trump Vance ticket. That was his statement on announcing what is a historic rally at Madison Square Garden on the 27th of October. Okay. The Las Vegas Review-Journal has endorsed Donald Trump for president. The Las Vegas Review-Journal has endorsed former President Donald Trump for the November election, citing the current administration's poor track record on inflation, the border crisis, and Vice President Harris's policy flip-flops as reason to overlook the disappointing and indefensible behavior surrounding January 6, 2021. Quote, the hurricane of history charts a chaotic course. The gales of recent months have left political norms strewn across the landscape. The turbulence has rattled both major parties and left many voters unsettled and apprehensive. Thus began one of the more cynical and ambitious rehabilitation efforts in the history of modern politics. A vapid, unpopular vice president in an unpopular administration who flamed out spectacularly in her 2020 run for the Oval Office was within weeks recast as a purveyor of joy. The second coming of Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, and Mahatma Gandhi. Contrasting her past and current opinions, the Nevada outlet wrote that Harris is being portrayed as a tough-on-crime border hawk after her history as a San Francisco leftist who sympathized with the defund police movement. She has also backtracked on her prior views on key issues such as energy, healthcare, and the Senate filibuster. To advance the swindle, Ms. Harris carefully avoids any unscripted interviews unless a friendly questionnaire tosses the softball slowly enough for her to make contact. The outlet continued before saying that its newsroom is under no illusion about Donald Trump. His behavior in response to the January 6th mayhem was disappointing and indefensible, although the constitutional guardrails held firm. His penchant for dwelling on past grievances isn't helpful. His insistence that every election he loses is rigged. But Mr. Trump has a 4-year record as president for undecided voters to consider. Earth didn't stop spinning while he occupied the Oval Office. Trump's term was marked by relative global stability and a strong American economy. Inflation was an afterthought, and judges who respect the Constitution limits on government power were appointed during the Republicans' presidency. They also mentioned the tightened security at the southern border and the rapid development of vaccines during the pandemic. So again, the Las Vegas Review-Journal has endorsed Donald Trump for president. Okay, we've got to take a short break. A few other things to get to this morning. And we're going to be wrapping up very quickly. We just got about 20 minutes left together. Now, I guess I have a little time. I don't have to take a break quite yet. Hold on. Trump was forced to cut the Pennsylvania town hall yesterday short. Multiple audience members experienced health emergencies. Trump was blasting Harris for presiding over high interest rates and inflation, the hiked consumer prices about 21% since Biden took office, before calling off the forum in the Philadelphia suburbs as overheated attendees in the packed space were taken away. This was in Oaks, Pennsylvania. Let's make this a music festival, Trump improvised, calling on his staff to blast opera icon Pavarotti's Ave Maria and other songs before leaving the stage with a call out to his supporters to turn out and vote. We win the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We are in clover. And then we're going to fix our country, and we're going to fix it fast. He encouraged his listeners after only taking a few of their questions. The much-hyped event initially went sideways when attendees heard a loud thud of what sounded like someone falling from the bleachers before a heavy-set middle-aged man was wheeled out on a stretcher with his shirt cut open. Minutes later, Trump was prevented from answering a question by more attendees shouting for medics. The ex-president asked for the facility's doors to be open, but said later they could not be left ajar due to security concerns. As he and South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, the event's MC, speculated that inflation had made air conditioning too expensive for the facility's operators. Well, that's a good way of spinning it in a positive way. Trump outlined some, but not all, of his economic platform as he courted suburban voters. And as I mentioned, he was in Oaks, Pennsylvania, and he'll have more trips to Pennsylvania, of course. J.D. Vance will be in Williamsport tomorrow. I'd be curious if you are planning to attend J.D. Vance in Williamsport. Going back to what Trump had to say in Oaks, Pennsylvania, if he returns to the White House, quote, we're going to buy that house, and you're going to pay 2.5%, 3% interest, and you're going to say, I love this guy. Asked about grocery costs by a woman who said she was raised in a black and Democrat voting union household in Philadelphia, Trump focused on record high illegal immigration during Harris's tenure as Biden's point person on reducing migration along the southern border. When millions of people pour into our country, they're having a devastating effect on black families and Hispanic families more than any others. The Republican nominee argued that he would boost domestic fossil fuel production and that when the energy comes down, the prices are going to come down. 1 year from January 20th, we will have our energy prices cut in half all over this country. Trump also said he'd take aim at regulations that make it more expensive to build new housing, a vision also touted by Kamala Harris. In this abbreviated Q&A, and I love that. That's one thing I'll be curious to see tomorrow when J.D. Vance is in Williamsport. The question and answers, specifically, I like when J.D. Vance does it with the press. It's a unique dynamic because we see a press that is so angry at the Trump-Vance ticket, and he's obviously not scripted. He doesn't know what questions are going to be asked. He just takes the questions, and I find that to be the most interesting part of, and what is all around a very interesting rally when it comes to J.D. Vance, but the most interesting part. Between 5,000 and 6,000 spectators attended Trump's town hall as Harris spoke to a crowd of roughly 7,000 in Erie, according to a pool report. Harris has touted her own middle-class economic proposals. You know all that. Now, Trump lost Pennsylvania by more than 80,000 votes back in 2020 after winning the state by more than 44,000 votes in 2016. The former president fared worse in Montgomery County in the past election, helping tank his overall effort to carry the state, losing that county by more than 26 percentage points to Joe Biden in 2020 after trailing Hillary Clinton by a more modest 21 points in 2016. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
What's up, guys? What I'm about to show you is going to change the way you shave your head forever.
You can shave your head in 90 seconds or less.
With no cuts or nicks. It's 100% waterproof.
It even works in the shower.
Introducing Remington's Balder Boss. With increased flex and 5 dual-track floating head design, get over 60% more head coverage for a faster, closer shave and skin-close results.
No nicks, no scrapes. Fit in the palm of my hand, and the results were amazing.
Shave in the shower or with any foam or gel. With Japanese-grade steel blades, plow through the thickest of hair. Anytime, anywhere. There's even a pop-up trimmer to complete your perfect groove. Now, you can try the Remington Balder Boss in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. Complete with a 5-year limited warranty and 100% satisfaction guarantee. You can also get our ear, nose, and brow trimmer free. Just pay separate processing and handling.
Give it a try. You won't be disappointed.
Order your Balder Boss.
And we are back. The Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go through some viewer comments. I think the only reason Harris had that many people in her rally was that a lot of people came down from Buffalo. That could be being in Erie. That could very well be the case. Next up, a different comment. How come we haven't heard anything more about Kennedy's endorsement? I'm not really sure the answer to that. I guess it's no longer in the news cycle, and obviously there's some other things going on with Kennedy that were maybe more newsworthy. And then the recent passing of his mother brought some more attention to some of the people in his family. So I guess I don't have an answer for you on that. I don't know why there hasn't been more coverage of it. And then Ken writes in. Ken says, the legacy media will start telling us that Harris didn't plagiarize anyone. She was plagiarized prior to her writing her book. That's a good point, Ken. I could see that. Well, you can see they know it's an issue because obviously Walz had the questions about him misleading on his background, whether it's his military service or some of the things he's done in his life, like Tiananmen Square had such a bad response to that during the vice presidential debate that I think the New York Times and CNN and others wanted to get ahead of this and say, wait a minute, yes, there's some questionable things, but it's okay. It's all right because they know that this paints a larger picture, larger narrative of the Harris-Walz campaign. Daniel McCarthy has an interesting piece this morning saying Kamala Harris has a problem with veterans. They overwhelmingly support her opponent. They favor Donald Trump veterans by a lopsided 61% to 37%, and that's according to Pew Research. For years, civilians have been sold a narrative that just isn't true. Democrats and liberals in the media invested heavily in trying to portray Trump as a leader at odds with America's men and women in uniform. You've seen it. You've seen that try to be the narrative for quite some time. But veterans themselves never bought the story. They've been one of the Republicans' most steadfast constituencies. Trump won about 6 out of 10 veterans in each of the past 2 presidential elections, and he's on track to match the performance this year. Veterans like J.D. Vance better than Tim Walz as well. Both vice presidential contenders are veterans themselves, though Harris's running mate has been criticized by men who served alongside him in the National Guard, who say Walz lied about his rank and exited the service just in time to avoid being sent to war in Iraq. While Walz does well with civilians, Pew's poll of veterans finds they prefer the ex-Marine on Trump's ticket. 53% of vets view Vance favorably, while only 34% have a positive impression of Walz. The Pew study suggests veteran discontent with Vice President Harris isn't simply the result of a partisan tilt towards the GOP among vets. Overall, less than a quarter of those polled, 23%, say Harris would make things better for veterans if she became president, compared to 55% who say Trump would do so. And I know I don't like to get into all the numbers because it gets a little wonky, but even among veterans who support Harris, 33% say she won't make much difference either way if she wins the White House, and 5% say she'd actually make things worse. That's interesting. So even those who support her said that 33% said that it wouldn't make any difference. That's very much like the Howard Stern endorsement, that yes, I'm going to vote for you, Harris, but I would vote for that wall against Donald Trump. Anyway, whenever a high-profile general disparages Trump, as former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, recently did in Bob Woodward's book, his opinion makes headlines. The sentiments of ordinary soldiers and veterans get much less attention. There's a cultural gulf between these sides. Politically vocal generals and the national security officials who signed their names to open letters supporting Harris for president are Washington insiders, creatures of the swamp. Their perspectives and interests aren't those of the regular service member or vet. When Milley, now retired, trashes Trump using standard Democrat campaign rhetoric, quote, now I realize he's a total fascist, end quote, he's speaking the language of his clique. It's also the language of his bank account. Since leaving the Army, Milley has been making a mint as a consultant and a lecturer on the high-end circuit. He is represented by the same high-powered speaker agency as Hillary Clinton. So he's not the average veteran. Now, if veterans are a bedrock of Trump's support, swamp things like Miley are a core constituency for Kamala Harris. Trump is running against them as much as against her, and veterans are well aware of it. Yet they're with Trump, not the swamp. The top brass long misled Americans about the war in Afghanistan, which they insisted we were winning, and it was the troops who paid the price. The fact that Harris has the backing of Washington's foreign policy establishment is for many voters a compelling reason to reject her. No wonder voters in the states most likely to decide the election want Trump's foreign policy, not more of what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have given us these last 4 years. Veterans in particular know the cost of failed leadership. They paid it before, and if Harris wins, their brothers and sisters in arms will pay it again. Let me take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, it's haunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. I got tongue twist right here at the end because I realize we have a lot to get to and we only have a few minutes to do so. First, there are growing concerns on the international front that Hezbollah has found a way to beat Israel's Iron Dome after the drone blitz kills 4 as U.S. makes a rare troop deployment. This coming from The Sun. Hezbollah says it has targeted a base belonging to the IDF's Golonia Brigade with a swarm of drones. It was the deadliest strike by the terror group since Israel launched its ground invasion of Lebanon nearly 2 weeks ago. Tel Aviv has a world-class air defense system, which has meant strikes to Israel have, for the most part, been inconsequential until now. It's a busy morning on the street, sorry. Israel investigators are trying to wrap their head around why the Iron Dome didn't pick up the killer drone, as well as why air raid sirens failed to alert the brigade. Yeah. So that was just a quick update. Walls, speaking of the Middle East, Walls said the leadership style gives them the opportunity to differ from Biden on the Middle East during an interview with 7 News Detroit on Monday. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz responded to a question on if a Harris-Walz administration will be different on the Middle East than the Biden-Harris administration by saying, quote, I think the leadership style that she will bring to this one that gives us that opportunity. I think the leadership style that she will bring to this is one that gives us that opportunity. So signaling that there would be a change in style, a change in leadership when it comes to how they would handle Middle East as compared to Biden. Okay, a couple quick New York stories. New York Democrats, as I mentioned earlier in the program, fellow Democrats are pressing Governor Kathy Hochul to sign into law a measure that would force major oil and gas companies to kick in $3 billion a year so New York can invest in the infrastructure needed to address the impact of planet warming climate changes. Now, where do you think that $3 billion a year comes from at the end of the day? Obviously, it's you and I, those left in the state. In June, the Senate and Assembly passed the Climate Change Superfund Act by party line votes in the democratically controlled legislature. Everything is democratically controlled in Albany. Modeled on earlier state and federal efforts to clean up toxic waste sites and oil spills, the bill would hand companies like ExxonMobil, Chevron, the tab for environmental damage caused by the buildup of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Only Vermont has passed similar legislation. Now, Albany. Here's the question. Speaking of Albany, will they get another pay raise? Last week, the New York State Commission on Legislative, Judicial, and Executive Compensation held a public hearing to accept comments on whether to increase the current compensation for the legislature and the governor. The compensation levels recommended by the commission will take effect unless changed by the legislature and the governor. Since June of 2015, the commission consists of 7 appointed members, 3 chosen by the governor, 1 by the Senate Majority Leader, 1 by the Assembly Speaker, and 2 by the Chief Judge of the state's highest court, one of whom serves as chair of the commission. The commission is considering pay raises to the highest paid governor and state lawmakers in the nation. Yes, already highest paid, but looking for bigger pay raises. New York state legislators have a $142,000 salary, the highest in the country, and due to the ongoing legal challenge, the commission may place no limits on outside income. New York's governor is also the highest paid in the U.S. Well, it's still New York. Letitia James could be the mayoral frontrunner if she decides to run. There's been a kind of a consistent push lately from Democrats and media alike to say to former Governor Cuomo, please don't run. We don't want you to run. You're not going to win. And now we're seeing, to kind of drive that point home, telling maybe through this article, Letitia James could be the mayoral frontrunner if she runs. The wink, wink, nudge, nudge to former Governor Cuomo saying, you may not want to run. Hey, we are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Look at all these last-minute comments. I'm sorry. Another great show. I feel up to date hearing news reporting now how it's supposed to be. Thanks. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. Really appreciate that. We've got some other comments. I will read them on tomorrow's program. We had a busy morning, and I thank you for everybody who joined us. I want to thank Billy Joe Jones for being our guest. And join us every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Oh, I quickly wanted to mention on Thursday, we will be talking to fan favorite Sheriff Jim Allard. And on Friday, we have Hornell Mayor John Buckley, 2 guests that I know many of you really, really look forward to hearing from. So that's Thursday, Sheriff Allard, Friday, John Buckley. So make sure that you tune in. All right, that does it for us today. We will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early with Frankly Speaking, starting at 6 a.m. I look forward to it already. Have a great day, everyone.